Alright, our agenda for today, we are going to start by watching this video. And while you're watching this video, I would like you to follow along, taking notes. Remember that at any point, if I'm talking too fast, you can pause and you can rewind. And then once you're finished taking notes, you have the rest of the period to work on your homework. But before you work on your homework, please show your notes to the sub, and if the sub approves, then you can have the rest of the period to work on your homework. Alright, so today we are going to be solving trig equations. This is a lot like what we did before finals. The difference is we're going to be going backwards. Before we were given like sine of 30, what is it? Now we're going to be given sine of theta equals 1/2, and what is theta? So the important things to remember from before finals are the quadrants. Which functions are positive, negative, and which quadrants? So remember, in quadrant 1, all trig functions are positive. In quadrant 2, sine, cosecant are positive. In quadrant 3, tangent, cotangent are positive. And in quadrant 4, cosine and secant are positive. And then the other important thing to remember are our two triangles, our 30, 60, 90, and our 45, 45, 90. So for our 30, 60, 90, remember we say, hey, let's make opposite the 30 be 1. So then opposite the 60 will be square root of 3, and opposite the 90 will be 2. And for our 45, 45, 90, we say, hey, let's make opposite the 45 be 1, which means opposite the 90 is square root of 2. So what I want you to do as a review is I want you to take a couple seconds right now, pause this video, and then fill in sine, cosine of these different angle measures. So for example, sine of 0 is right here, and remember that has the coordinates 0, 1, 1, 0. And 90 has the coordinates 0, 1. So sine of 0 degrees is 0. Cosine of 0 degrees is 1. Because remember, x is cosine. Y is sine. Now for 30, 45, 60, we're going to have to use our triangles. So sine of 30 is 1/2. Cosine of 30 is square root of 3 over 2, etc. So go ahead, fill in this chart, pause the video. Alright, now check your answers. Let's see how we did. Alright, now remember, because of the fact that sine is positive in 2 quadrants, it means it's negative in 2 quadrants. Same thing for cosine, same thing for tangent. That there may be multiple answers between 0 and 2 pi. So let's go ahead and let's actually do an example. Sine of x equals negative 1/2. So we're going to first start by drawing our axes. Now, use our all students take calculus to figure out where theta is going to be. So sine is positive in quadrants 1 and 2, which means sine's negative in quadrants 3 and quadrants 4. So now we're going to draw our triangle. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we have opposite is 1, hypotenuse is 2, which means this is our 30, 60, 90 right triangle, with theta being 30 degrees. again, it goes back to that triangle, just looking at the triangle and figuring it out. So that means that theta in this case is going to be so 30 degrees has a reference angle of pi over 6. So remember 1 pi is 6 pi over 6. So we're 30 degrees past that, so 7 pi over 6. And then our angle here is 30 degrees less than 2 pi. So 30 degrees less than 12 pi over 6, so that's 11 pi over 6, because 2 pi we could write as 12 pi over 6. And those are our two answers. Alright, cosine of x is square root of 3 over 2. So cosine is positive in quadrants 1 and quadrants 4. So let's draw our triangle. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So fill in the 30, 60, 90 triangle, which means our reference angle again is going to be 30 degrees, or pi over 6. So in quadrant 1, our reference angle is pi over 6. And in quadrant 2, it's 2 pi minus pi over 6, which is 11 pi over 6. Example 3, we have tangent of x is 1 over square root of 3. So let's draw our axes. And tangent's positive in quadrants 1 and 3. All students take calculus, so quadrants 1 and quadrants 3. So let's draw in our triangle. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So with respect to theta, we have opposite is 1, adjacent square root of 3, which means our hypotenuse is 2. So again, it's our 30, 60, 90 right triangle with our reference angle being opposite the 1. So our reference angle again being 30 degrees, or pi over 6. So theta is pi over 6 in quadrant 1. And in quadrant 2, it's going to be pi plus pi over 6, so 7 pi over 6. At any point, if you'd like to try one before I explain it, you're welcome to pause, try it, and then check your answer. So example 4, draw in our axes. We have cosecant, which is sine, is positive in quadrants 1 and 2. Draw in our triangles. So we have cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. So we have the opposite is square root of 3, hypotenuse is 2, adjacent is 1, which means theta, in this case, it's still the 30, 60, 90 right triangle, but in this case, our theta is opposite the square root of 3, so it's going to be 60 degrees, or pi over 3. So in quadrant 1, it's pi over 3. In quadrant 2, it's going to be pi minus pi over 3, or 2 pi over 3. Secant of x is negative 2. So secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so that's negative in quadrants. Let's see, all students take calculus, so quadrants 2 and 3. Draw in your triangle. Secant is adjacent, or hypotenuse over adjacent, because it's the reciprocal of cosine. So that means my hypotenuse is 2, and my adjacent is 1, which means the opposite square root of 3. So again, it's the 30, 60, 90 right triangle, with our reference angle being 60 degrees, or pi over 3. So in quadrant 2, that's 2 pi over 3. And in quadrant 4, it's pi plus pi over 3, which is 4 pi over 3. Cotangent is adjacent over opposite, but adjacent over opposite, we never have a side length being 0, so remember that cotangent not only is adjacent over hypotenuse, but it's also cosine over sine. So cosine is 0 when x is 0, so at 2 places, at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Seven, 8, 9 are a little bit different because we have to actually solve first, isolate the cosines. So in example 7, first thing I have to do is add 2 over to the other side. So we get 3 cosine of x equals negative 3. Divide by 3, we get cosine of x equals negative 1, which again, that's on an axis. X is negative 1, right there at pi. And that's the only location because, again, we're going between 0 and 2 pi, so we're not making multiple rotations around our circle. Example 8, we have cosine on 2 sides, so I'm going to bring the square root of 3 over to the right side and bring the negative 3 cosine of x over to the left. So we have 2 cosine of x on the left side, square root of 3 on the right side. So we get cosine of x equals square root of 3 over 2. So cosine is positive in quadrants 1 and quadrants 4. Draw in the triangle. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So square root of 3. And our hypotenuse is 2, which means our opposite is 1. So that means our reference angle is our 30 degree, because that's opposite the 1. So that's pi over 6. And in quadrant 4, 11 pi over 6. And then finally, number 9, cosecant squared of x. So we're going to square root both sides to get rid of the squared. So we get cosecant of x equals plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2, which means I'm going to have 4 answers. Because cosecant is positive in quadrants 1 and quadrants 2, but cosecant is negative in quadrants 3 and quadrants 4. Since we have plus or minus, we're going to have both where cosecant is positive and negative. So cosecant So this must be a mistake, because if this would be our hypotenuse and that would be our opposite, we don't have a triangle that has an opposite of 2 and a hypotenuse of square root of 3. That's not possible for a hypotenuse to be bigger than your side opposite, so I'm guessing this was supposed to be sine squared. So let's change that. So now we have sine, so now that makes more sense. That's opposite. That's adjacent. Let me pick a better color. So opposite is square root of 3, and hypotenuse is 2, which means our adjacent is 1. So again, this is our 30, 60, 90 right triangle, with our reference angle being 60 degrees, so pi over 6. Pi over 3, 60 degrees. So in quadrant 1, that's pi over 3. In quadrant 2, that's 2 pi over 3. In quadrant 3, that's, let's see, 1 pi plus pi over 3 is 4 pi over 3. And then in quadrant 4, we have 2 pi minus pi over 3, so that's 5 pi over 3. And that is our lesson for today. Once you have all of your notes filled in, you can go get them checked by the substitute, and you can get your homework, and you have the rest of the period to work on your homework. One thing that I want to point out, that we did not have any 45, 45, 90 right triangles. That's just a coincidence. Remember, we can have those as well.